Welcome back. It's Dean here, and I've got something awesome I want to share with you today. I'm talking a lot to business owners and a lot to business owners who are selling themselves, whether that be as a coach, a marketing consultant, a graphic designer, a financial advisor, business consultant. And I talk to a lot of these people, both when I'm doing events around the world and speaking at events, but also day to day on social media. And one of the biggest things that people talk to me about is, how do I get people to see the value in what I'm doing? How do I get them to communicate with me? How do I get my prospects to see that they need me? Well, I thought we could start this in this episode and talk about this from a point of view of a conversation. You know, we've all got to have, whether you call it a discovery call or sales call, it's a conversation with prospects. And if you're a subject matter expert in anything, in other words, you're selling your know-how, your knowledge, helping people achieve something through your skill set, one of the big dangers is that you actually go into coach mode or training mode or teaching mode in a sales conversation. And whilst that can be good because you're trying to help the person, the logic is if I help the person, they'll see the value. It doesn't work. Because what happens is they go away with something to do and they don't need to take any steps because they've got something to do already. I've done this horrendously. I will go on calls with people and they're coming on a call to find out about how I can help them. And instead of helping them see how I can help them, I actually help them there and then with something little that they go, that was useful. I'll go away and do that first. And inadvertently, I was extending my own sales process. I was making it longer and I was making it more difficult for myself. At the end of the day, we're all trying to help people get a better outcome. What we're selling is the value of our expertise, know-how, experience, all of that stuff to get there. But when I was having sales conversations, I would jump into teacher mode, trainer mode, coach mode, whatever you might call it. And instead thinking, oh, wow, they'll go, wow, Dean, that was amazing. I want more. And what happens is they go, wow, Dean, that was amazing. I'll go and do that. And this is a common mistake people make. So I thought, let's talk about what should be in a sales conversation, whether it's an informal sales conversation or a scheduled, planned, I want to know about your services. It doesn't matter. The same things happen. Most people think that a sales conversation is awkward and difficult, but actually, if you get it right, you become the doctor, the teacher, the coach, the consultant, and you behave that way, but that doesn't mean you go into coach consultant session. So let me walk you through what I mean. So how do you run a sales call? There is a few steps in the process of a call. And I'm going to walk you through each stage. Feel free to take notes here because this is the best way. I think it's the best way to run a sales conversation that gets you next steps, gets you results, gets conversions. So first off, before this sales conversation even happens, you need to know who the hell you're going on a call with. You need to know what their business is, who their customers are, what their challenges are, all of that stuff. So you should be doing some prep. Looking at their profile on LinkedIn, their website, their company page, what's going on in their business, what do they post about, what do they sell. You want to know all of that stuff first so that you can have case studies and testimonials and all that good stuff prepared to talk about if you need it. If you go on a call without the preparation, you will be feeling your way through it. If you have some preparation, you know roughly, you have a steer on where the value can be added. You have a steer on where they're going to need your help. You still need to learn that on the call, but you go into that call better prepared, better armed to give a better experience for you and a better experience for them. So do your research. That's the first thing. So don't go on a call without knowing what the angle is, what the perception is, what's going on in their world, the works. Now, we get on the call, right? We don't just dive into business. We got to break the ice. We got to build a little bit of rapport. Yeah. And this doesn't have to take a long time, but what we're trying to do is create common ground to make everybody feel at ease. Somebody coming on to a call will feel a bit uncomfortable. You'll feel a bit uncomfortable. So find some things to talk about that create common ground. And it can be things like, British, the weather. If it's a video call, their space, there must be something interesting in their space. Anything that's going on at the moment, but find that common ground. It's really important that you find that space where you can break the ice, but make everybody feel at ease. So use that space to make the person feel at ease. It doesn't have to be long. It can be a couple of minutes, but it's just trying to take the awkwardness out of complete strangers meeting on a call. That's the objective you're working on here. How do I get somebody to not feel uncomfortable? So then the next part of this, and this is the most uncomfortable for a lot of people, but it will help bring structure to the call, is to set the agenda of the call. So it can be as simple as, thanks for coming on the call with me. Appreciate your time. What I thought we would do is I'll find out a bit more about you, share a bit about you. I'll tell you a bit about us and see if there's any fit. It can be that simple. It can be that simple. And you can say things like, is that good for you? Does that sound okay for you? And you're just reassuring people there is a structure to this conversation and they know where it's going. And I always try and say, so are we still good for 30 minutes? Because if they come up and go, I'm really sorry, I've got to run in 15 minutes, you want to change the timings to fit the slot. So I always say, and reassure them that it will be done in 30 minutes, right? So this is just simple setting of the agenda. It brings structure. You'll feel uncomfortable doing it, but actually it brings a lot of structure to it. So it doesn't have to be like really formal. It can just be, so we'll find out a bit about you, find out a bit about me, see if there's any alignment there. And are you still all right for half hour? Is that all right? Just to set the agenda. So that gives you confidence of knowing that they know what they're expecting. It gives them confidence of they know what they're expecting. And then we go into the most important part of it, getting the prospect to actually tell you about their business. So the obvious question you want to ask is, what made you come on the call today? And you can ask that first out, but I tend to say, so tell me a little bit about the business. Now, I've done my research, but now this is their chance to tell me about their business. And I want them to tell me a little bit. So I would probably say something. So before the call, I had a bit of research, looked into it. Is this what you do? And you go, yeah. And you can get them to start to talk about their business. And so you want to ask, I call this phase discovery. Now, you cannot effectively sell anything without discovery, because this is where the prospect will tell you what's going on in their world, what their goals are, what their challenges are, because you're asking questions and helping them understand and share where they're at. Now, here's why this bit is really, really important. I don't know about you, but I'm like this, and a lot of people are like this, is sometimes we go through the motions and we're doing things and we don't really know why we're doing things. Sometimes we think X is a problem, but actually when we think about it more deeply, Y is actually the problem. And so in this discovery phase, it's not just about getting information to be able to sell to them. It's about asking questions that get your client who's on the call, your prospective client, to think more deeply. Instead of racing through things like they normally do at surface level, this is your chance to get them to think more deeply and a bit longer term by asking some really good questions like, so what have you been trying to achieve? What's working? What's not been working? What happens if you don't achieve that goal? How important is this goal? It doesn't just help you frame, oh, this is how I can sell to them. It helps the prospect on the call think more clearly about what do they really want. Many times, and I've had this, people come on a call with me and what they wanted, they say, I want leads. I want leads. I want leads. And when I talk to them and ask them some questions, I uncover the fact that they've been through a ton of different courses. and not implemented them, they're not really sure on who they're selling to. They're not really sure what they're selling to those people. And so there's a whole lack of clarity that they have about their whole business that if I just try and bolt in a program to help them sell leads will absolutely fail. Because how can you generate leads when you're not certain on who your customer is? How can you convert those leads if you're not sure exactly what you're selling and why people need it? And a lot of people go through, where small business solopreneurs go through a business that makes them money, but never really gets further than, a side hustle or a good job money, because they haven't got this clarity. So I take the time to ask the questions to find out not just what their answer is, but to get them to think more deeply about what's going on in their world. Because if there is these issues, I can point out that these things are fundamental, and no matter how much lead generation you do, it won't work for you. So this discovery phase is about helping people think more deeply about what really matters for them. So coaches, this is where you ask the right questions to draw people's answers out and get them to think, get them to reflect. What do I really want? What happens if I don't get this? Is it a good move that I've been buying course after course after course and not actually doing anything with them? So that discovery phase is the bulk of the conversation, because until I have clarity there on where they're at, until they have clarity, it's hard for them to make a good decision. And this phase in itself is actually quite beneficial to the prospect, because they leave that conversation, even if they're not ready to buy, they leave that sales conversation going, yeah, I learned something there. I gained something from that conversation. So there is value in that session, in that discovery phase, not just for me, how do I sell to them? What do I sell? But for them, that clarity that thinking about those questions really brings. So if you were doing a 30-minute conversation, I'd probably try and devote about 10 to 15 minutes into this phase, because I can really unpack what's going on there. And that's helpful for them, but it's really helpful for me. So the discovery phase is helping them understand where they're at right now, where they want to be, what's holding them back, and how important of this goal or problem is to them in their world. You've got to help them think about that and see what really matters. And sometimes, weirdly, when you do it, you get curveballs too. People say one thing at the beginning of the conversation, and as you go down, they realize actually there's something else far more important. So that's the first part, discovery. Well, the first big chunky part should take 10 to 15 minutes of a 30-minute conversation. Then our next bit is actually to take all of that knowledge of what we've learned, help them understand what they've tried before, absorb all of that stuff and say, basically, here's what I'm hearing. You want this. This is a problem for you. It's a massive issue. This is what you want to get to. And I would mirror back to them what I've taken from that conversation. Is that right? And ask them for confirmation. Is that right? Is that what we're on the same page? Then what I would start to do is explain how my process and my offering can help them achieve that. I'm not telling them what I do. I'm not telling them about this program or this, that, and the other. I'm saying this is how I think I could help you. What we call the milestones of an offer. The milestones of, if we can get you into a time-saving system with LinkedIn and it's bringing consistent leads, is that good for you? Okay, well, 3 parts of the bits that we need to do. We need to refine your offer and get your offer positioned well. We need to narrow down your target audience so we can get some clarity and then develop that message so that time-saving system performs. So I can put that offering together and explain it in the sense of how it helps them achieve those goals. Now, I'm not talking about how many sessions, what's involved there. I'm just literally matching what their needs are and showing them how my I can help meet their needs. So I'm not going into features of, there's 72 hours of content there and all this downloads and all that stuff. I'm talking about how do I meet their needs that we found in that discovery. That is what they're buying. The deliverables, the number of coaching sessions, the 12-month support, the library, the podcasting opportunities, all of that stuff, the features of what I'm selling are not really important at this point. I just have to show them how that I can meet their needs, and I have a process to meet their needs. Then they're probably going to ask a few questions, but I'll explain a little bit about it, but I won't get into the weeds of you get this, you get this, you get this, you get this. I'm not saying what features you get. I'm just saying how it meets their needs. So once I've done that, I will start to say about questions. Now, they may bring up questions. If they don't have any questions, then I will bring up some common questions. Some of the common questions people ask me about this is this. Is that relevant to you? Yeah. Okay. And we're trying to then get into a discussion where they say, well, how does this work? And what's involved? What's the time commitment from me? That's when they start to ask the questions. And you also want to ask questions back to them once you've presented how it meets their needs, of saying things like, is this potentially something that fits what you're looking for? How does that align with what you want to achieve? Do you have any thoughts on it? Just simple questions, but you're prompting people to think about what you've offered. Now, atypically, when it comes to telling people what we do, we get lost and excited and go over to in far too much detail and take up too much oxygen. In reality, it is better for us to show how it meets their needs and then deal with the details in the back following conversation. We don't want us explaining our offering to basically wipe out all of the time. We want, in a 10 to 15 minute, if we spent 10 to 15 minutes on the discovery, we've probably just spent 5 minutes on explaining our offer, because then we can get into the detail with them of talking it through and how it fits their needs and all of that stuff. Now, if you did your discovery phase well, you will have also uncovered some of their potential objections. Things like, we don't have budget. Or, I don't have a lot of time. Or, I've been burnt by a lot of programs and courses before, which is very common. You then have to, in your explaining your offering, show how yours doesn't do that. So that's where you can bring in like social proof. You can bring in case studies and keep it conversational. Don't start sharing PowerPoints and stuff like that. But you want to explain your offering and use what you've learned to navigate, to explain that offering. So you don't just say, we can do this, blah, 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 and actually walk into an objection or not tailor it to what really matters for them. So that next stage after explaining the offering then is the discussion. That's where they'll say, well, how does it work in reality? How many live sessions and what days are they on? Do I need to do this? Do I need to do that? You have to invite that discussion by saying, is that something that could be a fit for you? How does that align? Any thoughts? And if you feel uncomfortable, one of the things a lot of people feel uncomfortable with is talking about the price. I have a solution to this, where what you can do is if they start to ask you about the details of it, and this is a bit weird, but it's a good way to do it. If you're feeling uncomfortable about it, about talking about the price, people will sense your discomfort. So what you can do is have a one-page slide that just has an overview of what's involved, the kind of details, and maybe a case study. 2 to 3 slides tops. Don't go nuts here. And when you get to a point where you're talking about, well, what's involved in the program, say, I'll tell you what, let me just share a slide here because I've got it all on. I can show you all. And you can bring up those slides and put your price on one of those slides. Put a testimonial on there, put case studies, social proof on there. Tell people what's involved in it, what they get for it, and put the price on there. Because that will get the price out. And it will come out pretty quickly. And here's the thing. If then they go a bit quiet, you know where they're at. You can figure out where they're at. But if you're nervous about saying your price, put it on a slide with some of the feature set so that when they ask about certain features, you can bring up those slides and show them. And it will get the elephant out of the room. The last thing you want is to talk. And then the prospect have to go, so how much is it? And the other thing I would say as well about when the price comes up, if you actually say the price, do not justify your price. It's like, okay, it's $3,987. But you get this, and you get this, and you get this, and you get this. Do not justify your price. Let the price speak for itself. And people will go, if I want that, and I want that outcome, I've got this problem, and this is the pathway. They're saying they can get it to me, and this is the price. It's then for me to interpret. But if I'm justifying the price, I'm actually undermining its value. I'm saying I'm actually having to sell it. I'm trying to sell it. And what you want people to do is consider it. Consider it. It's not the same thing. Me selling is me pushing. You want them to absorb it and think about it. So 3 parts to this. 3 main parts to it. There's the discovery phase. There's the explain your offering, mirroring back based on what you've learned. And then there's the discussion phase. So they're the big chunk of it. That's probably 20 minutes or so of your call there, right? With the majority being the discovery phase, because that leads to everything else. So let's say it's 20 minutes. Let's just go through it from the beginning, right? So break the ice and set the agenda is probably 5 minutes. The discovery set phase is about 10 minutes. The explain your offering, 5 minutes. So we're in already now to about 20 minutes. We've got the discussion phase, which could be 5 or so minutes, maybe 6-7 minutes. And then we've got the next steps, which is the final part of the call. What are we agreeing to do next? So let's say, for example, they say, oh, well, I need to go away and think about it. Yeah, I'm not into high pressure selling, right? So you can say, okay, tell you what then, why don't we set up a time, maybe in a week's time, you can go away and think about it, come back with any potential things that you think maybe it is a fit, it isn't a fit, and let's set a time in the diary. That's what you can do. Now, if they have got still questions outstanding, what you can do is ask them and see if you can continue the call. But if you're not comfortable kind of countering objections, set a time. If the action is, I'm going to send a proposal and then agree a time to have a follow-up conversation. In other words, agree what you're going to do next on that call so that you have a knowledge of what their next step is, but also they know what you're going to do next. So it gives clear communication about what's going to happen. Most people are not going to be the classic salesperson of when they come up with, oh, well, I have to ask my partner. Do you know, I've never had that question or objection ever. Never had it. And yet the internet talks about it like it's a massive thing. You can try and say, well, okay, what do you think your partner's concerns would be? Right? And let's see if I can address some of them so you can take them back with you. You can do that if you want to, but it does take a little bit of inner confidence to be able to do that because it's not a normal thing to do in normal conversation. But if they come up with questions that or objections, you can go, okay, well, what would give you peace of mind that this is the right thing for you? What would stop you from buying? You can ask these questions in that discussion and phase, but for some people, it might come across as high pressure, and for you, it might not feel comfortable. But if we think about this flow here, right? We think about this flow. We've done the icebreaker at the beginning of the call. Before the call, we've prepared and done some research. We've got the icebreaker, setting of the agenda, then the discovery phase. Then we do explaining our offer and how it meets their needs. Then we've got the discussion, and then we've got next steps. And that is a fundamental way to do a call that actually both sides leave better informed. Both sides leave after seeing the value of what that conversation. But ultimately, you're going to close more because you've helped the prospect see where their needs are, and you've shown the prospect that you can meet those needs. And if you've got your social proof in order, you've got your processes in order in terms of what you're selling, they will get it. So think about those as stages. Think about that as a process that you follow. 5 minutes icebreaker and agenda, 10 minutes of discovery, 5 or so minutes up to 10 minutes of discussion, and then the next steps, and then follow the next steps. Even down to if they say, well, I need to think about it, you say, okay, when would be a great time to follow up? Or would you like to have another call in a week's time and we can go through some of the potential questions you've got? Give people a structure and then follow this. And that discovery phase will be mammoth for you because you will better understand how you can help people rather than just rabbiting off your sales pitch and hoping it lands. You'll actually know what lands. And just one other final tip here. When you're explaining your offering, if there's like 7 or 8 different things as part of your offering and 6 or 7, let's say there's 7 things in your offering that you can help them with. If they focus on 2 or 3 things that are a real big deal, don't spend your energy talking about the things that are not relevant to them. Focus on the 2 or 3 things that really matter to them. Maybe dance over the others and say, well, we've got this involved as well. But for me, I think the key bits for you are these 2. Let me just talk you through these 2. Keep your what you're saying when you're explaining your offer, keep it anchored to what they feel is important. Don't just go through presenting the whole freaking thing when the majority is irrelevant for them, because then they will leave the call going, yeah, there was a few bits in there I think that could be quite good, but all of that stuff wasn't really relevant to me. And you've basically just made it more confusing. So if you've got 7 things in your product, service, whatever, and they're really only interested in 2 or 3, make all your explanation about the 2 or 3 and play the others down, because that's what they're buying for. They're buying for those 2 or 3 things. And if they get those 2 or 3 things and it achieves the result for them, they don't care about everything else. So the more you introduce things that don't matter to them, the more they don't think it's a fit. So keep it focused. That's how I run my sales calls. That's how I do them. And if you do it with enough practice, guess what? It becomes instinctive. It's like a standard operating procedure. And you convert more because you're more relevant, more focused, more persuasive. And some of you going, oh, that feels really salesy. No, you're actually being a doctor. That whole structure is like being a doctor. You're diagnosing the problem, then showing them a way that we can treat the problem, and then asking them and discussing with them the treatment plan. That's what you're doing. And I see so many sales calls. I had one recently with somebody. Somebody got on a call and tried to sell me, and they didn't take any time to understand my needs and just jumped into selling what they do. And I'm like, I did the British thing of like pretending to be interested. Oh yeah, that's interesting. And because they weren't listening to me, they were just eager to sell their thing. They didn't pick up on the fact that I'm just agreeing with them because they were talking, and they talked for the whole of the call. Other than me going, I can see a point there. They didn't ask questions. There was no discussion. It was just a monologue. And I see a lot of people doing this, and it's because of their excitement. I've got a prospect on a call. I might be able to sell something. They love what they do. They're excited about what they do. It's those 3 things basically override their good common sense, and they end up with, actually, they've just pitched people and didn't realize it. So tips for a perfect sales call, you've literally got it here. So the 7 parts to a sales conversation: icebreak, agenda, discovery, explain your offering, discussion, next steps. Do it and watch how your calls go more smoothly, and you'll close more business.